And the Tuna Terran is going to be going up against the Shield of Fire. Let's go. Let us go. As spawning in the top left-hand corner, we have the South Korean Terran player representing On-Site Gaming. It is Ryung. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the South Korean Protoss representing the Kwangdong Freaks. It is Stats. Here we go. And Stats, he just wrapped up a close PvP between himself and Hero. Now he's up against Ryung. Ryung, of course, he is such a hard player to read. Like, I'm a big fan of Ryung. We love Ryung here on this channel. One of the ex-Axiom boys, of course. He has his ties with the CranKy Ducklings. And there are certain days where he shows up and he's literally, like, the best Terran in the world. Like, we've seen him pop off like once a month, once every 2 months in events like WTL or Kung Fu Cup, where he shows up, he takes down Max Packs, he takes down Hero. He suddenly pops up in TVP, takes down Dark as well. He has these moments of brilliance, but they are moments. You know, Ryung, he isn't the most consistent of players, unfortunately. And we'll see what kind of Ryung we see today. We'll see what kind of player, or what kind of caliber of play he's able to bring to the table here in the qualifiers of Code S. I think he said before, where, well, I know Yaku, he knows the phrase. What did he say? He said that he has like the mind of, he has like the mind of Mario but the hands of Ryung. Like, like he knows that he's like a really smart player and he can make a lot of really good decisions, but he's a little bit slow, and he knows that he's a little bit slow as a player as he's a little bit older. And he does have to make up for that in a way. Mechanically so, I should say. So, yeah, we'll see how this turns out. So far, economic opener. It's going to be a Rex Expand here from Ryung. Only a single gas opener from our Terran player. Meanwhile, Stats likewise going for a gate into Cybercore into his expansion. So, economic openers all around. More significant for Ryung, because double gas openers are quite common. So Ryung going to just be taking things slow and steady here in the beginnings of Babylon. And it isn't just about, you know, what kind of play are we going to be seeing from Ryung, but likewise, Stats, he is more of an inactive player. He isn't full-time like Hero or Dark or Classic. Stats, he has been, well, he just hasn't been as active as these other players. So I'm always excited to see players like Stats, players like Bunny, players like Armani. Excited to see like their current form, their current skill level. And at least in the PvP, he was keeping up with Hero, as he is going to be going for a Stargate opener into Phoenixes. Oh, beautiful. Oh, and behold, the beginnings of Phoenix Colossus. Do love to see it. Ryung trying to get a scout off, trying to get a read on what the tech of choice is, whether it's the Twilight Council or a Stargate. Phoenix does move out, and behind this we do have our 1-1-1 setup here from Ryung. Despite going for a single gas opener, he doesn't go for like a 3-racks or anything like that. It's a pretty standard setup, and the first Phoenix will reveal itself pretty early on. There is a Widow Mine in that mineral line, but Stats doesn't check. He does pull back. And of course, this does reveal that Stats did go for a Stargate opener. Ryung not fully aware, and is just setting up for it. It's going to be a little bit risky trying to go for a mine drop and trying to bypass these Phoenixes, but Ryung is going to do his best. Back at home, we do have a Robo finishing up for Stats. Should be for a Safety Immortal, into a third base, into a Robotics Bay. Again, Stats playing pretty standard so far. Very meta. Nothing too fancy, and that's kind of what Stats is known for, to be fair. Very standard play. There it is. There's that Immortal. There's that Robotic Spay. The Phoenix count just getting higher and higher. Interesting that Stats hasn't really been too aggressive with these Phoenixes. Like, he hasn't tried to harass or pick off any units, pick off any SCVs. He's been very defensive, very passive with them. And Ryung, as a result, his economy has been left untouched. Likewise, he has been contained and stuck at home. He didn't try to go for that mine drop. He's stuck here in between his bases. Did go for that Raven. He has to babysit it, has to keep it alive. That's going to be a big pickoff here for Stats if he can get it. As the Phoenixes are now moving out, containing Ryung here to his 2 bases. Oh, as the Widowmine does get caught out. Nice moves there from Stats. Okay, he just gets a Widowmine, backs off, rotates back around. 3rd base is getting up and running. The Colossus count is slowly getting higher as the first Colossus is being chronoed. And yeah, Stats, he's just fortifying himself quite well. Finally getting a couple of SCVs. We do have a trap being set up here by Ryung. Raven is spotted. Oh. But Stats does see those Widow Mines. Does pull back. Doesn't get baited in. Yeah, from here he can just pick off those Widow Mines one after the other. Ryung building up his push. At this point though, does he have enough to break Stats? He has kept his Raven alive. The reason why I talk about the Raven and why it was important for Stats to pick it off is the Raven is such a powerful utility unit here for Ryung. Can disable those Colossi, can render them inert, and without those Colossi, Ryung, he could potentially break this 3rd base. So he's going to be rotating around. He's taking a 3rd base behind this. He's expanding. He's looking for a way in. But there are so many sentries, so many force fields are available. Even if we disable these Colossi, I'm not too sure if Ryung can really dive in. He's going to try to, though. Does scan ahead of time. Again, he doesn't want to waste his Raven. Doesn't want to waste the energy. He's being forced back. Oh, we do have to disable one of those Colossi. Both of them, even. But there are those force fields, and Stats should be able to hold on. Yeah, Ryung, he needs to get the hell out of here. At the same time, Ryung does have a secondary force here on the right-hand side, getting ready to dive into the natural. Ryung is going to be rotating around, and alas, he doesn't have any more energy left on these Ravens. Will back off. But at least he didn't lose anything. Didn't lose too much. Oof. Oh my god, as the Phoenixes do come across the drop. Big mine shots go off, and it looks like Phoenixes will clean this up. 3 Phoenixes went down. Not a bad trade for Ryung. But he does lose a lot of Marauders. Medevacs do barely survive, though. Surprisingly. Behind this, Stats is just, you know, fully saturated on 3 bases. He should be working on the 4th base momentarily, and there we go. 4th is on the way. Extentable Lance, Templar Archives, 4 High Templar, 4 Archons. Another mine shot goes off, but for the most part, Ryung is doing well for himself at least. They're getting his 3rd up and running, but Stats just maintains his supply lead here. Now with the 3 Colossi, he can work towards Disruptors. He can start diversifying his splash damage. It feels like Stats is snowballing a bit out of control. A lot of this is going to come down to the spellcasters. It's going to come down to these Disruptors and how good the Novas are, as well as Ryung and his angle of attack. his disables, his EMPs. As Ryung moves out, Zealots hit the third, and a Prism slips into the main. Ryung not quite in position, and a lot of SCVs are going down. The entire army of Ryung forced back home. And we may not have WCS game heart, but yeah, 11 SCVs fall. It's giving Stats so much more breathing room as well to just build up even more disruptors. No mining whatsoever happening in the main. Ryung, he does come across these Zealots at least. And he still has a pretty formidable army. But again, he is being slowed down, and Stats is maxed. Stats has maxed out. Oh boy. And in this relatively passive game, it feels like maybe Stats has gone away with too much. He's going to be moving out, hitting this third base. And it's going to be all or nothing for Ryung. He is now stuck on a 2-base economy. He's trying to land a 4th base, but there are Zealots waiting for him. Stats, he just pokes in and backs off. I feel like at this point, especially with a 4th base now getting up and running, Stats, if he wanted to, he could start taking up into Sky Toss. Throwing down a Fleet Beacon, a 2nd Stargate. I feel like there are options. Big anti-armor missile. And this Zealot counterattack isn't really doing too much. Ryung is getting his 4th. Ship weapons are on the way. No Liberators yet. Like, that's kind of the big thing that Ryung is missing. Is a good way to, like, have an anchor point against this ground-based army. Right now, it feels like Ryung's army is a bit of a glass cannon. So a lot of DPS. A lot of DPS is available, but, you know, one wrong move, one Nova to the face, and that could be it. It's very fragile. It's like all it takes is one Nova, and we have, what, 5 disruptors? Boy, there's the fusion core. There's the 2nd starport. So Ryung, he is thinking about liberation zones or liberators, but it may be too late. I don't know if we have the time to get into those liberators. Stats taking a 5th, rotating around, once again forcing his way into that 3rd base. Does take a big anti-armor missile to the face, but the Novas are going to be zoning Ryung back. And he does have to give up on this base location. The CC goes down. At the same time, though, Ryung goes for a big counterattack. Big EMP, and this Nexus will fall. I do like this. I don't think Ryung can fight this head-to-head, so just go for these counterattacks. Go for these backstabs. Likewise, those Stats is not turning around. He knows he has an overwhelming force. Big Nova will go off. And more Novas as well. Oh my god, massive connections. Stats takes a dominating fight, pushing into the natural. Across the map, he's going to be losing his 4th. Could be losing his 5th base as well, but it may not matter because Stats is about to get on top of the production. He's breaking into the main. No, never mind. He recalls back home. Stats could even potentially try to sandwich this army. Yes, he's going to be consolidating his forces. He's looking for the army of Ryung. Oof. Picks off a couple of units, a couple of ghosts here and there. Ryung is going to be able to reinforce. Liberators are on the way. Ryung is stuck on 2 bases. That's a lot of Liberators. Meanwhile, Stats is on 3, as he does have top right, and Ryung does not know about it. He didn't scout, he didn't check, did not know. So Ryung may think that he's in a better position than he is. Stats, he bypasses those Liberators. Pushes on forward. Colossi are going to be going down, but another big Nova. there are no ghosts left. Another Nova goes off on the Marines, and yeah, Stats just has too much. Planetary goes down. Stats, he has gotten out of control. The Liberators are just too little too late. GG gets called, and Stats will take game number 1. GG. Again, was a pretty passive early to mid game where Ryung was kind of threatening his opponent, but couldn't really do too much. Stats just had such a solid defensive line early on. Was able to build up towards his Colossi, towards his Disruptors. I do think that the Liberator transition from Ryung was a little bit late. I do think that's something that he could have started working on sooner, maybe a 4th base sooner as well. Without them, he could never really threaten the main army of Stats. Could never really engage, at least not defensively, not on Stats' terms. I did, of course, like the counterattacks and the backstabs, but again, just maybe too late as well. So getting into game 2, and spawning in the bottom right-hand corner of Gressfan, we have the South Korean Terran player representing Onside Gaming down in this series, but not out. It is Ryung. And spawning in the top left-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the South Korean Protoss representing the Kwangdong Freaks. It is Stats. Here we go. And Stats with a really solid game on. That's what I have to say about Stats. Like, just really solid play. Just building up towards a 3rd, building up towards a 4th. Rounding out his army with Disruptors. A good Phoenix control, I guess, as well. Just containing his opponents, and yeah. Really solid defensive play from our Protoss player. But on Gressfan, that can change. You know, we're now on a bit of a larger map. As it's larger, potentially Ryung can get more done with drop play. Maybe try to pull apart his opponent. We'll see what he goes for. Again, my eyes for the most part are on Ryung. I don't expect Stats to go for a Twilight Council opener. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for a Stargate into Robo, into Colossus, like Phoenix Colossus again. Like, it works. It's good. And I don't see a reason for Stats to really divert his build. Really, my eyes are on Ryung. As he's going for a Rack Expand. CC is thrown down. CC was delayed for a moment. 2 SCVs were forced off the line as well. So, a good disruption early on by Stats. Meanwhile, the SCV gets across the map and is going to get a scat off. Going to get confirmation of what is going on. So Ryung just maybe a little bit paranoid. Didn't want to get cheesed out. Didn't want to get proxied. Is now moving out with his Reaper to have that factory on the way, so it's not going to be a 1-1. So it's not going to be a 3 racks. Ooh, we could even... Okay, never mind. If the SCV was still out of the map, we could maybe try to proxy the starport, but no, the SCV does come back home. So nothing too fancy from Ryung. Reaper is going to be dipping in, bypassing the Adept, and going for a scout of the main end. Oh, I stand corrected. Stats, I didn't think he needed to divert and go for a different opener, but he will. It's not a Stargate, as a Twilight Council. Twilight Council opener here from Stats. That is spotted by Ryung. Ryung is fully aware that his opponent has the ability to be a little bit more active and aggressive. Now, we'll see how many gateways we build up towards. It's going to be a 2-gate opener so far. So 2-gate blink. We could see a 3rd gateway, of course, but 2-gate blink into a 3rd is, you know, very common and very macro-oriented. Does feel like that's what Stats would go for. Back at home, we have our 1-1-1 setup. There is blink on the way. Now, it is on Ryung to scout and to determine like how aggressive this is going to be and how many gateways there are. They do require different responses. But as we can see, this is going to be a little bit more tame from Stats, and he is looking to expand and take a third. Third base is taken, so just a safe 2-gate opener here from Stats. Very macro-oriented. Ryung, of course, needs to get a read on this, and he should be able to with this Reaper as he heads towards the third, and he should spot it. And upon seeing that, he should know that, okay, there aren't that many gateways. So he does go for the probe. Back at home, we have a bunker set up. Tanks are on the way as well. And here comes that mine drop. Again, thankfully, because there aren't any Phoenixes, Ryung, he has the ability to be a little bit more aggressive. Oh my god. Quick moves out of Ryung. Does spot those stalkers. Does back up. Thankfully. Doesn't lose anything, as he did get eyes on the third base timing. So again, he's aware that the game is going to go a little bit longer. Going down his eBay. Additional Raxes. And when you go for a Twilight Council opener like this, you can go for something like Storm as well to complement it, but no, we're going for Colossi again. But Xpay is finishing up, and the Colossi are soon about to begin. Yeah, Ryung, he just hasn't really been able to disrupt Stats yet. He does have a medevac drop, sorry, a Widowmine drop being set up here towards the south. He's got a Raven coming in from the north. And he needs to slow Stats down. Stats so far has been able to get away with this, has been able to get away with a faster third. At this point, it's getting fully saturated. Stats is in position for the most part. He's got Stalkers here in the natural. His main is a little bit more exposed, so there's potential for damage. Never mind. Ryung does spot the pylon, and he comes back home. Does turn around. And instead, he's just going to be building up his forces. There's TC on the way. Raxes, and yeah, we have another passive early game. We just be chilling. Just be building up our forces from here. Now, just like the previous game, there is going to be a window. There is like a timing that that Ryung can take advantage of. We saw it last game with that Raven. Same can be said. The Raven doesn't go for auto harass, but it is going to be available with the main army to go for those disables, to threaten the third. But we have sentries, we have force fields, we have a ramp, 2 shield batteries as well. Like, I don't see Ryung breaking this, even without the Colossi. But we'll see. As he does scan ahead of time, does spot the army. I could try to drop into the main. Now that the pylon is gone. Stats is aware of that. He does get in position. He's waiting for the drop. The drop that isn't coming as Ryung backs off. He's going to be meeting up with some reinforcements. Oh, I appreciate this. That mine drop is still there from earlier. We do have 2 more medevacs meeting up with it. Ryung going to try to pull Stats apart. Gonna try to keep his attention on the main army. We'll see if he can pull it off. We do see another pylon being shut down. Stats gonna be dragged over towards the left-hand side. Oof. Up! Big mine shots, but they only take down a couple of zealots. At the same time, the main army tries to push it forward. They do come across that prism. But the war prism will survive. And now Stats can push forward. He dealt with the drop for the most part. Cleaned up that army, and now Ryung is going to be the defender. Uh-oh. He just lost a wave of Widow Mines. He has an army coming back home. even with it, does he have enough? Stats has an overwhelming army. The mine shots get wasted. The army pushes forward. We have big disables on two of those Colossi. But despite that, we still have a massive gateway army. Zealots are being cleaned up. Those two tanks in the backline putting in a lot of work. But the third is lifted. The disables run out. The Colossi are back in play. We have some Ghost Ray EMPs. But Stats, he can still take a fight. And Ryung, he just doesn't have enough to support his army to protect his high-tech units as they go down. The tanks are helping though. They are holding the line. But they're a little bit far back, and it means that Ryung still just can't land. He can't take this third. He's just contained to 2 bases. Same time, Stats, he drops into the main. Ooh, loses the Warp Prism. Not quite worth it here for Stats. And he may have to back off. Back at home, he's got a 4th base, fully saturated. And Stats, he doesn't want to overextend. He will back off. Will save every one of his Colossi. Now he's getting into Disruptor production. Disruptors are on the way. 4th base operational. Ryung does survive, but the damage was done, and it's gonna slow him down. He's down 20 workers. Lost a good chunk of his army. I would love for him to be active, but Stats, he just has units everywhere. He has an Observer covering the main army. He's got Zealots spread out. That isn't going to stop Ryung, though. Oh, as he does have to turn back around. And here we go. This time a better angle for Stats. He's getting on top of the tanks. The first tank goes down. Big Nova does go off as well. Zealot's coming in from behind. Looks like Ryung is holding on, but he lost every single tank. Stats just going to be consolidating his forces, and now he's far ahead in supply. Just a much better fight here from Stats, and oof. Even with 1 Disruptor, he makes it count. Lands a massive Nova. And and boys, they have to be pulled, but into Colossus, into Archons, it's not a pretty sight. Every single SCV goes down, GG gets called, and Stats will take the series 2-0, qualifying for GSL Code A. GG. GG, well played. My condolences to Ryung, my condolences. But again, he had a really hard time here against Stats. Stats did a great job at just keeping up with a lot of the drop play that Ryung was trying to go for. And on top of that, just maintaining map control as well once the drop play was shut down. Really starving Ryung out towards the end there. And yeah, GG. GG, well played. Stats will be a part of GSL. That's exciting, to be honest. It's really cool to see. Really cool to see Stats advancing on. And I look forward to seeing more of him. I look forward to seeing more of him in the upcoming season. Ryung, I think, will have another chance in round 2. I mentioned earlier that tomorrow we'll be casting round 2, which is all of these players that get knocked out in these qualifying matches, they all get seeded into a second bracket for another chance at making it through. So not the last. Not the last we've seen of Ryung. As we are going to be getting into our next game.